Hello everyone, this is Hugo from Ichiban Painting, and today I'll be talking a little bit more about the higher end airbrushes in my airbrush series that I've been filming for a couple of days. So today I'm going to be showcasing you the difference between a cheap airbrush that comes with normally compressor kits or cheap eBay airbrush and an expensive airbrush. I do have two expensive airbrush, but I do have other one, but in working order I have this one, which is the Infinity that I just received, and I had the other, his little baby sister or brother, which is the Evolution. The difference between the Infinity and the Evolution from Harder and Steenbeck are almost the same. There's just on the Infinity, there's just a couple of more options that you don't have on the Evolution, but basically it's almost the same airbrush and it works the same. One little plug, if you compare it to other companies like Badger or Iwata's, the Harder and Steenbeck airbrushes are all interchangeable, the parts, which means that if you have already an Evolution and you have parts for it or you have needles for it, then you can use it on the Infinity and vice versa. You can switch between both, so it's really cool. Plus, Harder and Steenbeck, they do have a lot of accessories that are available, and they are all pretty reasonable. I mean, needle wise are not that expensive. 10 bucks for a needle, 10 pounds for a needle, compared to Iwata's and other brands that the needles are freaking expensive like crazy. But it depends on the model, of course. So this is what we call a 2-in-1, which means that when you buy this airbrush, it comes with 2 needles and 2 nozzles. This one is actually a 0.5 millimeter, so for really, spraying work. And then after that, you have another kit that comes in with another needle, another nozzle, and another cap, and a 0.15. So when you buy this, it's pretty cool because you have 2 airbrush in one. Infinities and the Harder and Steenbeck line, they do have cool accessories that they have a small cup that basically, when you unscrew this, you put a cap here, and it's gonna be just, your cup is gonna be that small. Then you have the 5 milliliter cup that you can put on top of it, and then you have another one which is the 10 millimeter cup, so depending on the work. They also have a 50 millimeter cup, that's a plastic cup that you put on top for guys that are spraying stuff on cars and stuff like that. It's a very versatile airbrush. Also, they do have a cap that you put here with a cup on the side, so your airbrush becomes a side cup mounted airbrush. So that's the really cool thing. Let's get onto the specific of a higher end airbrush and a cheaper, especially for the Harder and Steenbeck, because I really do like those airbrush. It's a personal preferences, but personally I really like them. The principle on these ones is that when you have the cheap airbrush, like I showed you on the previous video, you have 2 things that you unscrew here, and then you have your nozzle here that you have to screw in and unscrew. Problem that happened with this one, actually, that even if it's a cheap airbrush, I really liked it for doing spraying work and a lot of base coating, is that the nozzle is screwed in, and Iwata's are all the same too. There's a tendency that if you by mistake would screw it in too hard, it would break the nozzle inside the tread here, so that's really bad. The Harder and Steenbeck, the way it works is that once you unscrew the nozzle guard, the nozzle is actually put in by pressure, so it sits here inside. It sits here inside the nozzle protector, and when you screw it in, it pushes on the seal here and it seals it up right there. So you can always take your nozzle out and change them really easily, especially if you're changing needles and everything. You don't have to take out the little tool and take them out. So really, cool and nice function. So that's one of the first things for the Infinity that makes it really great, and also it makes you access this area here for cleaning purposes. So that's one of the nice thing about this airbrush that I really enjoy. Sometimes you have to change the seal, but it's just part of the deal. Another thing is that the needle protector, which is this part here, comes out. It's just press fitted in. So it's brand new, so you can take it out and you can change it for another one, which is, this one has a guard on it, so it helps you make more precise detail. You can put it there and you have always the same distance from what you're working on, so you can change those out pretty quickly and pretty easy. You don't even have to unscrew them, you just put it in there and it's there. If you remember, if you watched the previous video, I was talking about the needle protector. This is a more higher end needle protector, so it just have 2 pins, so you can actually see your needle when you're working, so exactly see where you're spraying. Another thing that you have on higher end airbrushes is that here on those ones, normally the nozzle on a cheaper airbrush is here, and it doesn't come out of the needle guard on the nozzle protector. It doesn't come out of this area here. It sits behind it, so which means that sometimes you have paint that goes in here and it's a mess to clean up. These ones, the nozzle actually comes out of the nozzle guard a little bit, so it never sprays inside of it, so it's really clean. The other functions that you're gonna, the other major things that you're gonna have between a high-end airbrush and a cheaper airbrush is the trigger action. This is really short trigger. This, if you look, it's a longer pull trigger. You have more movement, so which means more precise control of your airflow from the trigger. Also, when you move it back, this one is jiggly, and by pressing it hard and everything, it's a little bit hard to work. This one is smooth as silk. Really easy to work with. So trigger actions are going to be better on a higher end airbrushes. The other part with the harder and Steenbeck on the Evolution is little brother, which is 130 pound if I'm not mistaken. The Evolution, which is almost the same but doesn't have the function on the back piece of it, is 130 pound for the 2-in-1 with 2 needles, 2 nozzle cap, and this one is around 200 or 210 pound, but it does have the functionality in the back. So once you actually unscrew it, there's a little tool that comes with it, and then you unscrew the back part. But actually, no, I won't unscrew. I'll just take the back guard out. You have this adjustment here, which is actually is going to adjust the tension on your spring. So if you want to have a lot of resistance, you can screw it in a lot, and it's going to give you a lot of resistance. If you want a really smooth trigger, you can take it out and adjust it and have a smoother trigger. So that's one of the things that you have on a more expensive airbrush, is the ability to be able to adjust that. On the Harder and Steenbeck Infinity, another thing that's really cool is they have the little tip here that actually when you screw it in, when you push this button here and then you screw it in, this is going to actually block your needle. So your needle, you see, is it won't go back. It goes back all the way to here. But if I take it up, then I can go all the way back. But you see, if I put it back in, it pushes on my needle, and then my needle blocks here, and you can adjust it. There's a number here, so you can adjust it to where you want it, which means that I don't use that function a lot, but sometimes I do use it. If I want to have always the same consistency and the same paint flow, then I can adjust it here, and it's always going to be the same paint flow. Some airbrush, this one had one or a little tightening screw, but it doesn't have adjustments on it. It's always jiggly and wobbly and unscrews and doesn't stay there, but this one stays there. So basically that's the difference between a higher end airbrush, is that you're gonna have more adjustment, quality is gonna be better, the trigger is gonna be really smooth, and when you're working a lot with an airbrush, having a smooth trigger is really important. Then if we go on to how to open it, this one, so you can take the back part off. Then after that you have a little pin here to help it unscrew. Then once it's unscrewed, you can take it out. The difference between hold on, I'll take my needle out first. The difference between the cheaper airbrush and this airbrush is all in the quality of the build and everything. When you take it apart, the back block and everything, it's one block. It doesn't come, but you can unscrew them, but this stays in one block, so really easy to take apart. You don't have many parts. And then your trigger, all the trigger assembly is also in one part. It has a nice ball bearing that sits on the valve itself, so really easy to take out. You just unscrew this, and that's it. You have only 3 parts, your needle, and that's it for your back part, compared to the other one where you have your trigger, the back pin on the trigger, you have your block, you have your spring, and you have your needle and your needle guard. So this one, everything comes out apart. So if you're working a lot with your airbrush, then having this option of it taking apart really quickly and easily makes it more user friendly to use. So basically that's the difference between a higher end airbrush. The big difference between a higher end airbrush and a cheaper airbrush is all about the finish, the quality of the pieces, the airbrush, how it's going to handle. This airbrush handles superbly. It was crazy yesterday. I tried it, and it's a little bit like, it's basically like my Evolution, which is, like I said, quite kind of the same, but I do like the option on adjusting your own trigger and everything. So Really cool airbrush. Like I said in the introduction video, if you watch it, or if you don't watch it, go watch it. It's the first video, is whether or not you should buy an airbrush. I would never recommend buying the Infinity when you're just starting out and you never airbrushed in your life. You know, it's a big investment, like I said, 200 pounds. But if you are familiar with airbrushes and you did work with airbrushes before, then I would suggest, you know, why not, you know, buying a really good airbrush. You won't be disappointed at all. So to put it back together is the same thing. You put your trigger first, make sure that the trigger is sitting right in place. Then you screw your back block on it. Once the back block is screwed, take this one has the little pin, just give it one pop just to make sure it's really secured. Then you put back your needle in, say softly until it blocks, and then you block it there, and then you can put the back cap, or you can leave it open. It's really up to you. And that's it, and there your airbrush is back together. Compared to the other one, it's a little bit faster, right? So when you're changing colors and all that, especially if you're thinking about commission painting, having an airbrush like this that is versatile and really easy to take apart is going to be better for you, because you're going to lose less time by cleaning it out. You can take it apart really quick, clean it out, and then you're done. So basically those are the two main differences between a high-end airbrush and a cheaper-end airbrush. And a higher-end airbrush is going to give you really smooth work and really nice feeling to it. So if you have any questions, again, it's up to you. Just leave me a comment, I'll reply to it. As for the brands, I don't want to say I recommend the Harder and Steenbeck, because airbrushes, some people really hate them. I love them, so it's really a personal preferences. But I would really personally, I would recommend it. It's a really smooth and nice airbrush to own. So I'll see you on the next video, where I'm going to be talking about compressors, hose, and accessories for your airbrush. So I'll see you on the next video.